Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Kuiper Labs. Today we're just going to go through a bit of an overview of the topic that we call moving. So giving you a bit of insight into what we're going to study as we go through this and kind of some of the bigger ideas that we're going to look at. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to encounter is this idea of measurement skills. How do we, as physicists, can we measure motion? Okay, try saying that 10 times fast. Okay, in terms of, right, well, what can we look at to measure, what we're talking about with motion? So what sort of skills do we need? So maybe we need prac skills. Okay, maybe we need maths skills. Okay, so some different things that we're going to need to be able to make confident measurements of the physics involved here. The second thing that we're going to look at are some properties of objects that are moving. Things like distance, speed, and velocity as two related ideas. We're going to be looking at time, other properties like acceleration. Okay, we're going to look at kind of what we can measure, how we can measure that, what we understand by those different properties, and how we can actually calculate them. So there's going to be some calculation involved here. Okay, so then we're going to look at how, graphing motion. So maybe it's about graphing distance versus time and looking at what we see. Maybe it's velocity versus time and seeing what that tells us. Okay, and so being able to solve problems using graphs. Being able to actually construct graphs like this, being able to read graphs like this that help us to understand a bit more about what's going on. Okay, then we're going to focus on Newton's laws. Okay, so Newton, as you may or may not be aware, had developed, hundreds of years ago, developed three fundamental laws of motion. And we call them Newton's first, second, and third laws. Okay, and so we're going to spend a bit of time in this topic to actually try and unpack each of them. Okay, so the first law we often refer to as the concept of inertia. Okay, is how that word is pronounced. Okay, this idea that the tendency to maintaining a given state of motion, if it's staying still or if it's moving at a constant velocity. Newton's second law, this idea that is often called F equals ma, which is for the maths equation that kind of it builds on. This idea that when an object, when there is a force that's applied to an object of a particular mass, that it will cause an acceleration. And we can relate these three things together to be able to perform simple calculations about the force involved in accelerating objects. Okay, and then Newton's third law, what we often call action-reaction. This idea that that forces come in pairs. For every, often, so this idea, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So when two objects collide, that there is an equal force that happens, that one pushes on the other with the same force as the other pushes on the one. I realise verbally that sounds a bit confusing, but we will unpack that some more. And then we're going to, so graphs is 3, Newton's laws is 4, and then gravity is 5. So looking at this idea that what actually is gravity, concepts that we call like mass versus weight, and then looking at the way that it kind of affects different objects in the universe. So that's kind of where we're going to head towards the end once we've built a bit of understanding about what we can measure about motion and how we can describe it. Okay, so that gives you a bit of a really quick snapshot of what we're going to learn. Make sure that you catch down the details of this mind map in your book. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.